Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And speaking of the vice presidential candidate, I tell you, when I took a flight cross country in 1971, she was the best stewardess I ever had. I was just forget her outfit, her demeanor, and her eyeglasses. Anyhow, thanks so much for letting me come here. I'm really kind of a fortunate guy. When I was a little boy, I was kind of nervous, I was kind of obsessive. Later on, acquaintances told me I was graphomaniacal. I drew on everything. I drew on folders, I just drew on any surface. And my parents, not being particularly cultured people, did realize that they could harness this graphomaniacism by buying me a little slate. And when I was 3 years old, they bought a little slate that I sat at, like you would do in old school, elementary schools. And I sat at that slate for 4 or 5 years. And I drew mostly boy stuff, dinosaurs, dogfights with airplanes, armies killing each other, you know, steam shovels, boy stuff. And looking back, it's been over 50 years now, and I just can't believe what a marvelous country this is, that I get to pretty much do exactly the same thing I was doing when I was a 5-year-old boy. And so I'm pretty grateful about that. I should say, I made all this stuff, unless you hate it, and then we'll pretend somebody else made it who just left. Now, my stuff isn't the deepest. In fact, if you look at some of my work and decide that it's really stupid, you're not necessarily wrong. It's weird. I'm from Wisconsin, a little bitty town, and I spent my time going west, which is different than what's going on here in Pennsylvania. But there's some things that America pretty much has that's across the board. It has to do with developments, franchises, interstates, the kind of normalcy that we're all experiencing, except to me, and I suspect most of you, it isn't that normal. It's funny, when I got out of art school, and again, those of you that are art students, if your parents are encouraging you to be artists, they're lying. My parents were like liberal, and they wanted me to be an artist because I had talent. When I graduated from college, all they said was, what are you going to do now? And once I got out of college, people would say to me, if you're going to do art that sells, you have to do nature. You have to do art that deals with the natural landscape. And I tried to do that. I tried to draw landscapes where there were elk and beautiful mountains and sunsets. But every time I tried, all I could see was a Home Depot or a portalet, a place to pee, and a lot of billboards to read. And I never saw the nature. So after a while I started thinking, maybe I should just draw the stuff I actually see in the landscape. And that was kind of my modus operandi. Instead of doing landscapes that dealt with the old traditional notions, and we're talking about conservative traditional notions of what art should be, I just started drawing what I saw. And on one level it's kind of sad, and on another level, and it's astonishing challenge. And so what you see is stuff that I guess is part of my everyday life. And that's a lot of boulevards, a lot of advertising, a lot of Walmarts, for God's sakes. The one thing that holds our country together is a hatred of Walmart from coast to coast and even in other countries. Starbucks, the things that are becoming the currency of our normal life. So that's kind of my basic starting point. I love to draw, I'm sort of obsessive. That aspect of American culture, which is to me a very white man aspect of American culture, and I like that because so often in education, you're supposed to supposed to reflect your heritage and that kind of thing. Well, I'm kind of a dorky, balding, middle-aged white dude. We don't have any heritage. So I'm thinking about the Starbucks and the Walmart. It's not much of a source, but damn it, it's an American source, and it's gonna be my source. So anyhow, that's my modus operandi. I do it in various things. Some of my drawings I do in series, franchises. Everybody knows the notion of franchising. Some of them are art-wise, some of them are just absurdist-wise. Basically, my stuff all emanates from that. Japanese things, I look at Japanese prints and it's like, wow, I can do that. I'll just give them my twist. So I have a bad habit of just ripping off virtually everything I see. And then there's a whole other aspect of it, and those are my portraits and those kind of things. Hence the title of the exhibit, Disabled Development. I thought it was catchy, albeit very, very tacky. But it seemed like a neat phrase, and hey, if you're going to sell anything, especially art, you've got to have a phrase, right? You kids in branding class know that, aka fashion design. Anyhow, no, I'm saying that not to downgrade fashion design, but the fashion design students here were telling me they have a lot of branding in their class. So, some of it is the landscape, and then I started doing these self-portraits where are kind of pictures of me, or at least me as the model, being kind of damaged from within by the culture outside. So I like the way the disabled development moniker works from both sides, kind of interior and exterior. And to be honest, for years I've been trying to bring the two together because I do these kind of funny drawings and then those realist ones, and slowly I think I'm bringing them together. In fact, finally just using myself as a landscape to put the same junk I do in these drawings on. So this is the first show I've had, actually maybe the second, but you know, the most ambitious show I've had where the two merged together. So I'd love to hear your opinions as to whether they work. Anyhow, as far as technique, you know, you draw long enough, pretty soon you get good at it. Years go by, you finish a drawing, you do another drawing. So I don't want to talk too much. If there's any questions, I mean, this is an opening, so we should be having drinks and things. So, any questions or anything? Or I didn't get the guide sheet or the talking points on how I'm supposed to do an artist talk. So, but talk I love because when this is over, I go in the basement and I draw and I draw and I listen to talk radio covering the election and I scream. I'm going to be talking tomorrow to classes. I'll be around tomorrow. I'm doing a workshop on Sunday, a master's drawing workshop. Hopefully the master will show up. If not, I'm going to download some text on what a master is and mimic one. And then I'll also be here on Monday, so I'm accessible. So hopefully, you know, if you have questions or want to talk, I would love to talk because when this is over, the talking stops. Okay, that being said, any questions? There's no questions so dumb in the art world because those of you that are art students, I got to warn you, when you graduate and become an artist, in the real world, people don't care about art. So love it when you're in school, when you can talk to other people that are into art. Any questions? Amundson, my last name you say? Yes, it's the Norwegian explorer. He discovered the South Pole for our family. We have condo developments down there that have been failing since 1907. And if you're interested, mortgages are lower than ever. Okay. Yes, sir.
The piece over here with all the short quotes on it, I was wondering about the sources for those, because some of them sound like bumper stickers and some of them sound like personal statements.
Yeah, that piece, I also do installations because, you know, drawings aren't hip, and if you draw directly on a wall, you got some history credit, you know, wall drawings in now. And I do these drawings where I would paint the whole gallery with a horizon line, and everything you see in these kind of drawings, I do with Sharpies, homes, Starbucks zones, all that. And then I call those pieces suburban graffiti, because my idea is that graffiti exists. I mean, well, first of all, you know, like if you're in a suburb, you don't go around spray painting suburban homes. That's stupid. So my notion of graffiti in a suburban setting is to place one of my dumbass little drawings. And some of these I make very small drawings, in every single home. Anyhow, that is called suburban graffiti because my idea is that the clutter isn't just visual. The clutter isn't just, you know, one Burger King after another. But the clutter is also oral, the stuff you hear. And I tend to listen, I'm kind of a news junkie. I mean, if you watch the news shows, if you watch the coverage of the convention, flipping from CNN to Fox, and these kind of toothless guys somewhere on the left, you know, I mean, there's just this horrible kind of clutter that just comes into your head, too. So when I do those drawings, I like to have, you know, the language as well. That being said, I'd like to say that everything there I overhear. But when I'm working on stuff and I'm listening to talk radio or reading articles, I just write down inane kind of graffiti-based lines that would work like that. And so a year ago, I did a piece where I had probably 3,000 sayings. And to be honest, that's what we call the Reader's Digest didn't push it, but it's a condensed version. You know, I went through, and again, I arbitrarily picked them. So to be honest, since I've made that, I haven't read it. I'm a little afraid because whenever I go up to, does it work or does it work like graffiti? I know I have two lines that I love because one thing I love about culture is the way they have all these people with one name that those of us, you know, over the age of 40 are still supposed to appreciate and respect, you know? I mean, Beyonce. Anybody else? Is this what an artist talk is?
This is what an artist talk is, yes.
Because again, I'll have time here to talk about specific pieces. You can ask what my influences were. I can't remember. You can ask how long it took. You know, it's funny. I always was like, when you ask artists, you want to ask something serious? I met a famous artist once and I'm like, how long did it take you to make that? You know? Anyhow.
What are your influences?
Oh, I got billions of them. Again, I mean, my work, again, I mean, I have a problem with art in general that it gets so esoteric. And so when I talk about the humor and that kind of stuff, one of my other challenges was to make art that, because when I was in art school in the 70s, it was very esoteric. You spend all your time looking at a Donald Judd cube and talking about it. I mean, God, we all love Marcel Duchamp, but I mean, there's all, you know, he lived, you know? So, I mean, I like to do stuff that's sort of accessible. So I'm a bit of a cipher, but I have heroes all over the place, you know? In fact, again, when I do gallery talks, I can talk about specific pieces. I mean, the last piece I did was homage to Piero del Francesca and Mantegna's portraits, as well as visits to Red Rocks in Colorado, where, you know, you two filmed that video. Maybe it's an homage to Bono, I don't know. But at the same